and welcome everyone. I'm Julie DeBoer. This is our Mastrius Painting Challenge we do once a month. If you're new, special welcome to you. I'm going to introduce Caprice here in a minute, just to fill you in on how this works if you haven't done it before. We start with this demo today. I've shared the link to the reference photo. So the idea is, because at Mastrius, we really love to help artists find their style and kind of express their voice as an artist. And so you are welcome to paint as Caprice paints. She'll have a composition and whatnot. And if you want to do the same thing, that's great. If you want to use the reference photo and take as much artistic license as you like and do whatever you want. We really love to see you take an idea and run with it, because next week we're going to come back together, same place, same time, same link, I believe, and we're going to look at everyone's paintings, and that's kind of the highlight, is seeing how unique everyone's interpretation of the reference photo, everyone's unique style, different mediums, different color palettes. It's really, really amazing to see everyone kind of shining through their work. So the idea is we're going to watch Caprice paint. Feel free to paint along or just watch and put your questions in the chat, or you can turn on your microphone if you prefer. And then we're going to paint it this week, finish it up. And then if you'd like to have it shared next week for our reveal, our, what do we call it? I forget. Then you can share it on Instagram and hashtag Mastrius Painting Challenge, or send it directly to Mastrius via a private message in Instagram. If you have a private account, we won't see your hashtag, so you'll have to send it to us directly. And we're going to collect them all up, and then we're going to present it next week. And Caprice and I will look through them all and kind of chat about all that there is to celebrate, really, in the beautiful artwork that you'll produce, whether you're an aspiring artist or a master artist or somewhere in between. We hope that you feel welcome to join. And yeah, so hashtag Mastrius Painting Challenge. We do have prizes next week, and we're a non-competitive community, so we do not give prizes for the best artwork, because I don't know anyone who can pick a best when it comes to artwork. It doesn't make sense in my brain. So we do a random prizes. We'll give a Mastrius painting apron, which has 3 pockets, by the way. It's the best apron out there. Yeah. So one member, if you're a Mastrius member, will get the painting apron. And if you're not a member yet, we're going to give you a membership. So a 1-month recording library membership, which is going to get you into Mastrius, into the community. You're going to see our recording library, which has all of our weekly live events, from demos to panel discussions to art critiques, interviews. We have about 100 or so recordings, and you can just binge watch that all month. Yeah, and I think that is all the details. I'm going to just spotlight Caprice here. And Caprice joins us from you're in British Columbia.
In Kimberley.
Kimberley, that's it. Kimberley, British Columbia. She is a master artist with Mastrius, a gallery owner, and she's been teaching for a long time as well. You've been painting now for 30 plus years, Caprice, is that right?
I don't know how we got to 30. I think I'm at 25.
25, okay. All right, 25 years, still pretty impressive. And what we know about Caprice is that she loves to share and teach. And that's always what we're looking for in our mentors, is that they're generously giving back and they're not keeping any of their trade secrets or anything. And you love connecting with artists at all ages and backgrounds. And your goal is to bring out hidden gems in your students in the same gentle and profound way that your own mentors did for you. And that's pretty awesome.
That's the way we roll.
Yeah, love it.
Okay.
All right, Caprice.
Okay. Are you going to let me start painting now?
Yes. Yes, I will. Go right ahead.
Okay, good. I can't wait to get going. And I did do this reference photo several years ago, which I think you've shared in your promo. And I'm excited to see how it changes today.
Mhm.
And I'm working in oil paints. And with oils, I always start with the darkest darks first.
Right.
All right.
What size is your canvas, Caprice?
It is a 9 by 12.
9 by 12. And if you turned it more, would it be impossible to paint? We want you to be able to paint. Okay. Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah. You turned the easel a little bit. If it works, if it works. Oh,
Let's
that
not
looks
drop my
good.
laptop, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I am doing my darkest darks, raw umber, a little bit of violet, and I am doing a little bit of ultramarine in there. And
Okay.
it's
Raw umber, violet, and ultramarine.
and I don't overmix my puddles. I'm the type to just kind of let the colors come through on the canvas. And with rocks, maybe I'll throw a bit of burnt sienna in there as well. It's going to give me my kind of outline for the waterfall here. Hard to talk and paint at once, I found.
Wait till I start throwing questions at you.
Go for it. That might make it easier. If anybody has questions in the chat, you can read them out to me too. Okay.
You bet I will.
And on this one, I'm making more about the rocks and kind of letting the waterfall. The last time it was more about the waterfall when I did my first sky.
All right. And where's the waterfall coming through? Is gonna go between those rocks?
Yeah. Hopefully by the end of the session, you'll see where the edge of the waterfall is. And one of my sneaky things too, I'm going to throw these rocks right in the middle of the waterfall there. And then I like to dry brush over it, so I probably won't do that part today.
Okay.
I love dry brushing the frothy water here. This part's going to be in the middle of the waterfall as well. So it won't look very good today, this part, because this will be white water by next week, hopefully coming through there.
When you dry brush it, you're kind of, is that a blending technique?
Basically, I will take my brush and ever so lightly, I've dropped my brush so many times, and then I will drag it over the dry, dark, very light touch with the white, or maybe a little raw umber with a touch of raw umber in there. And just let bits of that dark show through, so it'll be a split color.
Okay.
And on the rocks that are near going back as things recede here, I'm going to do the rocks on the far shoulder here. I'm going to do more blue, keeping my rocks in the foreground will be warmer. So these rocks back here are more blue. I don't know if you can tell the difference on the camera screen.
Yeah. And you're cooling them off because they're in the distance?
Yeah.
Things that recede tend to cool and reduce in value, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a question about where the reference photo was taken.
Lake O'Hara.
Lake O'Hara, that's in BC?
It's near Lake Louise, actually, so it's very close to it's in Yoho National Park.
Okay.
And if you haven't been, it's extraordinary, but there's no vehicles going up into there. So you have to catch a bus, which in order to get tickets on the bus, they sell out within minutes every May.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
So
And folks, if anyone has a question, feel free to pop it in the chat or just turn on your microphone and ask either way.
So I actually thought that this meant we were all painting at the same time, but I don't think people are doing that, right?
Yeah, you can do whatever you like. We do have people that paint along. Absolutely. So whatever your preference is, the recording will be on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So if you want to watch and then paint along at another time, that's fine, or go ahead and paint along right now.
and you know, one of the great things, I did one of these painting challenges with Veronica Funk,
Mhm.
and it was awesome because I was in a painting funk.
Oh,
And it was the best thing ever to just kind of get my brush moving. And I did the green chair that was in my studio, and it was she got me going. So
yeah, I remember that one. That's so good. Well, that brings up a great question. What do you do when you're in a painting funk?
sometimes you're just gonna make yourself just get going.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
I remember when I decided to go full time as an artist, and that was probably the biggest challenge, was making myself paint when I didn't feel like painting,
It's true.
because I couldn't wait for inspiration or wait for the feeling, because I had demands on my art needing to go out to galleries and stuff, and it takes a lot of discipline to push through.
That came up in one of the questions last night about this one woman had such fear about becoming good at her art because then there's that pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night, if you don't know, folks, Caprice was speaking at one of our weekly events. We do an event together every week, Thursdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And she was speaking alongside Lynette Melnick, who's another one of our master artists. They were speaking on the topic of imposter syndrome, which everyone, I think, has on some level, and an artist probably is more so, because we have to be very vulnerable to be putting our art out there for people to look and judge and decide if they like it and all of that stuff. So it's a really huge topic, how to deal with it. Thanks for doing that event. I haven't watched the recording yet. I wasn't able to.
It was very fun.
Yeah, good.
Very exhausting by the end. I didn't realize, it was intense at times.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very stressed about painting, and that made me sad that people were anxious and nervous, and this is supposed to be an extraordinary thing, and I love painting, and I don't want anybody to miss out on the joy of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's that's one thing that at Mastrius, like my experience before when I started painting, was that the industry was quite competitive, and this idea of success meant, gallery representation and painting for strangers, and I didn't really realize that there was another way to do it, another way to look at it or experience it. And so, yeah, that's one thing that we're trying to kind of correct at Mastrius, is this is supposed to be a joy-filled process where we lean into our courage and just go for it. But yeah, it's really vulnerable too.
Yeah, it's I think you guys are doing an amazing job, and I kind of compared this community to like what the group of 7 were doing back in the day in the studio building, and how they all worked together and supported one another and critiqued one another and painted together and went on paint trips, and I just, that hasn't been happening for generations, that kind of this kind of a community. So bravo.
Mm. Yeah, it's been really beautiful. And I hear you've got a mentorship group starting up here, Caprice.
I do. I'm excited.
Yay.
Yay. I've been waiting.
I know, I told you it would happen.
Yeah, you just, yeah, I can't wait. I've got so much to say, so much
Yeah,
to talk about.
that's so great. I'm just gonna look it up here and I'll share the link. So at Mastrius, kind of our main thing is mentorship, where you get to work with a master artist or a professional level artist who is going to help you reach your goals, you know, not like a workshop where it's just kind of more, here's how I paint and here's my technique and it's more about helping you reach your goals.
I like that it's not like a curriculum and that we can just base it on where every student is at and go with what people need.
Mm-hmm. Are you still using raw umber in the mix?
Oh, I've got a bit of raw umber. I've switched to some chrome oxide up here for some of my trees. I've got some permanent green deep in there.
Mm.
And of course, these trees will be, well, there's shadow on the trees in the foreground, so they'll be a bit dark, but there'll be more highlights in there as well. Sometimes the rules don't always apply. My water is going to come up into here. Gonna need to look at the painting on the screen, actually see if I'm getting anywhere. I'm going to start throwing some mossy green down into the foreground. I'm kind of jumping around just so you guys can kind of get a feel of where I'm headed.
Yeah, let us know what you're adding, what color you're adding as you do it.
And I want you to see, I like putting a lot of different colors on my brush, so I do not over mix. So there's like a bunch of split colors that then kind of come through on my canvas. I'm not an over mixer type.
And did you add, is that a cad yellow?
That's a cad yellow. And I had some of the green. There's a bit of burnt sienna coming through on my brush there. There's a bunch of bushy stuff happening in here.
So yeah, what Caprice is doing is, I actually wrote about this in our newsletter this week. It's basically you're mixing your own black, and it's not true black.
Yes. Yeah. I thought that was a great newsletter, Julie.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, tell us about, why don't you explain it for those who don't know?
Well, I have been one that I don't use black because I like to mix my own.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie explained in her newsletter how some some artists prefer to buy store-bought in black. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier and it gives it's a totally different color, different feel to the canvas. Mm-hmm. And for me, I like to mix my blacks with my darkest darks on my canvas, or on my palette, sorry. And yeah, I make my black with my raw umber, my permanent green deep, and violet. And then Julie, can you also explain your newsletter that you talked about value versus color and how value is the really good? I think that's a great thing that I really teach a lot in my lessons as well.
Sure. I know it's hard to paint and talk. Yeah, so for the black, and just to finish that thought, and instead of using black, mixing these really dark neutrals, because which is really, it's like eye candy, because it's not black, you do see hints of color coming through, and you might not even be aware of it mentally, but might not be aware of it, but your brain is picking it up. And it really makes it interesting to look at and draws the viewer in, whether or not they even realize why. And then I was sharing the idea of it's okay to also buy black from the tube and use black, that depending what your goals are, what style you paint. My work is really graphic and stylized, so having stark black is helpful for me to make it more impressionistic, I guess, less realistic, because that's what I'm going for. And anyways, the point of the newsletter was that it's do it whatever way you like. There's no right or wrong, even though some people will say that you should never buy black. I think it's just fine.
I agree.
You should do whatever you want because you're the artist, you're the creator of your work. You make the decisions that work for your work, and we all support that.
I think there's a couple of my students that are in this class and they're like, what, we're allowed black?
Sorry if I'm undermining your teaching.
That's fine.
Yeah. Terry's wondering, is Caprice using acrylic or oil, and what brand of paint are you using?
I am using oils. And these are my favorite. It's called Classico My Mary, and it's classified as a student grade paint, but I've tried their professional grade, and I go back to this one time and time again. It's I don't know if it's because that's the one I learned to paint on, or if it's just really good paint, but I love it and I go back to it time. I've tried like so many kinds of paints through the years, and I keep going back to it time and time again.
Yeah. Well, when you find what works for you.
Yeah.
You're probably saving a few bucks too. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're painting rocks, I just want to talk about, you want to think about, my students always laugh when I tell them they have to think like a rock, think like a mountain, but rocks are really, really heavy. They're hard edged. So you don't want to have like really, unless you're stylized like you, Julie, but for the most part, when you're painting a rock to make it feel like a rock, you want to have a few hard edges, and want to have lights, mediums, and darks, because to show the different angles, the different sides where the light hits.
And have you just added white to your dark mixture there, Caprice?
I am kind of tweaking it, but yes, some of it's going to be a bit cooler, some of it's a bit warmer.
Lovely.
And I'm not really even following my reference photo. So for me, the reference photos are kind of there as a guide to kind of like, okay, this is going to be a waterfall, but I don't follow it verbatim. Once I get like my sketch, I sketched it on, by the way, with chalk. And I like using chalk because it doesn't come through the oil paints. And it's easy to rub out if you want to change your mind.
I use chalk too, actually.
Oh, good. So you can see.
Lovely. Yeah.
So it's my puddle. You asked about my puddle, and I'm not sure if I can even show it to you. I was thinking I should use my paper palette today. Can you see my puddle? It's like a gigantic puddle on my palette, and I just keep adding colors to it, so it's not just like my original dark color. And then I take my puddle is huge, and part of it is cool, part of it is warm, part of it is dark, part of it's all over the place, so that I can continuously, every stroke kind of that goes on my easel, yes, it's hard talking and painting at the same time. Every stroke kind of is a different You want to have a mixture of your warms, a mixture of your cools, and lights, mediums, and darks. And for my values, I often will teach my students, I have a red sheet of plastic that you can see through, and you can get it at the stationery store a lot of times if they don't have it at the art store. And basically what that does is it takes the color away and makes it more like a black and white photograph.
Mm.
And that is the best sneaky trick that there is out there, I think, because a lot of students have a difficult time seeing value without seeing color.
Yeah, that's right. It is hard to read value with color. That's a great trick.
I wish I'd had it when I was learning to paint.
Yeah. And yeah, you had mentioned value. So in a previous newsletter, I talked about value does the work, but color gets the credit. Value composition, like we've got almost 200 mentors now at Mastrius, and I've heard it from most of them that value is more important than color, that it's more foundational. So learning how to create a strong value composition is really important. And then once you've learned how to do that, you have a lot more freedom with color, because if the values are set right, no matter what color you use, it will still look like the subject that you're painting. So the trees will differentiate from the rocks, from the water, from the sky. That's all value. And then if you want a pink sky and a blue tree and green water, you can really do whatever you want. It will still read accurately because of the value composition.
Yes.
Oh, and again, what was the size of your canvas? I know you told us once, I'm already forgetting.
9 by 12.
9 by 12, okay. I'm gonna take that. I think I've heard a couple mentors disagree about the value color struggle.
What's the disagreement with that? Tell me.
Yeah, well, it just basically that that they think color is as important as value composition.
Hmm. Well, I guess they all play their I guess they all have their place.
They do. And what's great is that everything is open to interpretation, right? Art, it's not I mean, there's science elements in it and color theory and all that stuff, but I know a master artist who one of his goals is to paint in a way where the value is all very similar and to differentiate only using color. And so when you look at his work, you really notice that it feels different. And if you like do a black and white image of it, you almost can see nothing. It almost just one thing blends into the next, and it completely loses its form, which is fascinating. But that's actually a goal that he has, kind of to mess with the brain.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah,
that would be hard.
Yeah, it would be.
When I was learning to paint, I did a whole painting in blue, and it was all value, right? That was a trick to learning value.
Yeah, that's a great way.
Yeah.
All right, so now you're adding more green, is that right?
Permanent green deep pretty much. And I used my green brush, which had a bit of other stuff on it. And these trees are further off in the distance. So I wanted to cool them, make them cooler than these foreground trees. And I'm doing some interesting sky shapes back here. There's a bit of raw umber in some of it. I don't want just one solid plain color. Maybe a bit of blue in here. You have to be very careful not to add white to your permanent green deep or you'll get turquoise.
Oh. And that's ultramarine blue that you're using?
Yes.
I love the shapes, Caprice.
Good, good.
Yeah, it's very bold.
These art demos, I tell you, they force you to kind of work loose because you're trying to get things done and show, so you can show people as much as you can. Work fast. Don't get too rigid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wanted to show you as much as I possibly can. I've had a few thoughts come and go, and I'll wait for you to finish talking there, Julie, and then if you got well, and with every brush stroke, you've got to think about all those things, your composition. Like I said, this one, I want to have a bit less water in here because it's going to be a zigzaggy water. This is going to be water up into there too. Composition, line, value, shape, color.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
In every stroke. Some are going to be soft lines, some hard.
Diane is wondering if you use your own reference photos.
For the most part. I'm in a wheelchair, so I've got some friends who are avid hikers, and when I'm connected to them, they kind of know what I like, and they will take the odd photo for me up when they are out on hikes, and I can occasionally use that, but I really like to be able to know the area, and have that emotional connection to it.
Mm.
And like I say, for me, with some spots, with like, for example, like O'Hara, it's got to be pretty specific. So then you have to go with your reference photo. I painted on location at O'Hara many years ago, so I'm definitely connected to that place. It's very spectacular. But I usually paint places that I've been myself, or with some friends, it works for me. Because I can just use the reference photo just as I am today, just kind of as a guide, and I'm not doing it verbatim.
Yeah, that brings up another great topic, reference photos. I've never painted from a reference photo without changing many things in it. You too?
Yeah, exactly. Unless, like I say, it's a specific scene where if you like just wing the snow patterns at Lake O'Hara, people are going to look at it and say you got that kind of wrong. You didn't get your shapes right. So there are definitely times where you kind of have to be a little bit more strategic in your forms, but
yeah.
You got to do Mount Rundle. I've seen a lot of bad paintings of Mount Rundle over the years where you can tell it's Rundle, but it's like sometimes you can take liberties with things, but sometimes it's kind of
a
little bit.
Yeah. When you're even there's a reference photo link again for anyone who joined late. Yeah, even like painting impressionistically, even going towards abstract structure is still important. Yeah. So you have got 3 brushes on the go, and you kind of keep them separate as far as cool.
I've got a green eye and a one with my burnt sienna kind of on there. And then I've got one for my lights on my rocks here. I think this is going to be.
And Nay has asked, top things you need to be aware of when painting from a reference photo.
Oh, top things. Well, like I say, one of the things that's super important is be aware if you are painting Mount Rundle, you want to make sure you get it right. If you're just painting a random mountain that nobody really knows of, you can just, have liberty with that. It's important to know that if you're not using your own reference photo, there's legalities for as far as copying someone else's work. You kind of got to have permission to use other people's. If you're selling it, if you're just going to hang it on your own private wall and you're just using it as if you're just using it to practice your art, that's one thing. But if you're going to be using it to sell, potentially, definitely be careful of copyright. But yeah, just don't get tied to your reference. You want to, make it your own. And part of it, it is good to paint on location and get a real feel for the scene. I like, all through the winter, I use reference photos. Last summer, I didn't get out much because there was construction on my street. So I did not go painting on location. I can't wait to get out there this year.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, that's great.
Don't forget shadows coming out the back of your trees. That's really important. This is kind of all shadowy in here. And to lighten this rock, and remember to back up from your work a lot too when you're working in oils or not oils. It's important to back up. Right now it really works to be able to look at the computer screen and see how it's looking.
Yeah, that's right. Get a bit of a distant view. Another excuse me, fun technique is looking at your painting in a mirror.
Yes.
And it's like right away you can see what might be off.
And sometimes I tell my students also to take a photo with their cell phone. And that's another little trick that can kind of really guide a person. Yeah. So then these are going to kind of not be so vivid in there. That'll have rushing water over it. But I want you to think too, when you're working on yours, about the different colors of the water. It's kind of like snow. The rushing water is not all white. And there's going to be a bit of a rock showing through up in here too. So I'm going to put this down in here. And then this stuff is going to show through. Let me throw a bit of blue in there. This is where the waterfall kind of falls down. So then there's going to be less light hitting that. This is where it's a bit horizontal. So it's going to look really weird today because this is not this is the waterfall.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a few more rocks down here.
We're at, we're 40 minutes in, by the way, so 20 more minutes.
Oh, thank you for that. I was just thinking about that.
No pressure. And
sorry.
I was just going to say, and you can send in your finished painting to Caprice.
I will, I promise. In my reference photo, Anae was asking too, you want to think about your composition because I'm not sure. And this big, huge rock was going right off the bottom, and I think I don't want that. So you want to kind of contemplate your composition as well, and you can change things up. You don't have to be stuck with what the photo says.
Yeah, I'm just going to screen share the reference photo just for the sake of the recording. There it is.
Oh, that was the thing I was going to talk. Look, notice the big log that's going across the waterfall.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that. I did not include that in the photo because it's kind of like a fence and it was stopping the viewer from entering the scene. So
Yeah.
I did not do that part. I left that log out of the composition because I thought it was really going to screw up and block. I thought it just didn't work.
Yeah,
So yes, I wanted to refer to that.
awesome. Yeah, it cuts it right in half. Debbie, it's okay. She said, oh no, I included the log. You know,
Oh. That's fine. That's fine. You can like, and there are tricks to making it, just don't make it quite so dark there. You know, there are different techniques as well. There's no right or wrong, but there are ways that you just, so long as you don't make it really super dramatic, stand out, you don't want that to necessarily be your focal point.
yeah, that's where value can save it. If you made a mistake or you included something that you wish you hadn't, just make it similar value to what's around it and it will kind of disappear a little bit. It won't be so.
Yeah, there are definitely, it's not a lost.
Yeah, no.
And sky holes are really important. How many you want? I'm just going in and filling in some of them here because I decided, oh, it's too many. I'm going to put another tree in here. I want to. Like I said, it can change as you go. And you want to have light against dark with oil paints, especially. If you put a dark tree in front of the dark trees in the background, then they will just disappear.
Mm-hmm. What do you do on the sides of the canvas? Varnish or no varnish? And the second question, varnish or no varnish afterwards?
I wrap the painting, the scene all the way around. So sometimes I'll do it if I'm like, as I'm mixing my colors, but I just, yeah, I just take the scene right around the edge. Some people like to just paint it one solid color, but I like to make the painting extend.
Mm-hmm.
And I generally like to do retouch varnish.
What is that? Tell us about that.
It is a varnish that allows you to varnish your painting after it's been dry to the touch, like after 2 weeks, versus a lot of the other varnishes. You have to wait like 6 months before you can varnish them.
Oh, wow.
Because otherwise they'll rot from the back, is what I've been told.
Okay.
So and with retouch varnish, you're allowed to actually paint over it again. So if you like finish your painting and then 3 months later you decide that it's got this glaring error that you must change, you can go over it.
That's great. Yeah, I paint in acrylic. I don't appreciate how patient you guys have to be in oil.
So you see now this foreground tree is a bit gloss. That's where I just gave you a good example about how you want to have dark against light. And I'm going to darken this. I'm going to have to darken up this foreground tree because, or else I'm going to have to lighten the background trees. I can lighten the background trees with a touch of white, chrome oxide. And that might work, but that's again, the value does a lot of this work. But you have to be very careful using white to lighten your colors because it can go chalky. And it's often better to use something like a yellow to lighten.
Mm.
Yeah, that's maybe going to work a bit better.
Yeah, looks great.
And again, you're going to have to be aware of your light source.
Beautiful depth. It's really lovely.
I know in the photograph, there's this nice light patch of trees in here where there's too bright. So you see, a lot of my students go, oh no, I mixed the wrong color. And I'm like, well, if everybody does.
Mm.
But with oils, that's one of the joys is you can go back in and like, oh, fix it in a big hurry.
Yeah.
It's very forgiving medium. And I like to have a variety of color. I don't want just green trees everywhere. I like having like, I put little dots of blue, purple, the odd red stroke in there, just to give it some depth. You don't want a whole big, huge space of just nothing but green.
Mm-hmm. Do you find green is a tricky color?
Yeah, well, it took me a long time to learn greens. And I've done color mixing things just on mixing greens.
Yeah, it's like it has the most variations of all the colors. Has a huge palette to itself.
It really does. And that's why I say you have to watch if you're going to lighten it with your whites, because it can just look, yeah.
Mm. And the only green you're using in this one is the permanent.
I've got two greens on my palette, permanent green deep, which if you lighten with white, it will go super turquoise. It has to be handled very carefully, that guy. And then I've got chrome oxide. So those are always my two go-tos.
Okay.
And you also want to vary your brush strokes. You don't want them all, all your. I've got some that are long, some that are short, some that are thick, some that are thin. So when I come back, maybe I'll put another rock down in there. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this foreground bit. This is going to be, let's get rid of this guy. I don't want anything to take away from my waterfall.
We are at 11 minutes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Maybe I'll put.
Lois is wondering if you let the trees dry before painting in the sky.
Sometimes that's probably what I'll do this time, because you don't want to be picking up green, but it doesn't have to take long. It can be like tomorrow, it'll be dry enough. It won't be dragging in.
Mm-hmm. Will you be putting the water in today? I
will wait and do that because I've got these dark blobs and I want to do this dry brushing. So I will totally drag that over once this dry. That's my favorite thing for doing waterfalls. And keep aware of the shapes in your waterfall, because it's, yeah, I got off topic there. Water, the white water is like painting snow. It's not really white. So it's like white is that got all these subtle things where parts of it are more bluer, parts of it are more browner, and parts of it have real light in it. Some of it's dark, but it's all set. Some of it can be really blue. So it's yeah, all very subtle. But there's definite shapes in your water. And I like your negative shapes in your sky. So all of these spaces have to be in an interesting shape. Don't want all your trees ending in one row. And raw umber is one of those magic things where a little goes a long way. If you use too much, your whole painting's going to look brown, but it's like a very good kind of neutral. It can really gray up your paintings, give a place for your eye to rest. Really, it can work wonders if it's handled properly. I love mixing grays with raw umber.
Just a reminder to everyone that we're going to get back together next week, Friday, same place, same time with Caprice to look at everyone's paintings.
I can't wait.
I know. It really is the best part. So submit your paintings by posting it on Instagram using the hashtag Mastrius Painting Challenge, or you can direct message it to Mastrius. If you have a private account, we will not see your hashtag, so you'll have to private message it to mastrius.official. I'll put that in the chat. And then Ginger is going to collect them. She's going to make a beautiful presentation, and then we're going to share it, and we'll look at each painting and relish how wonderful and unique they all are.
They're all going to be so different, all the same subject matter possibly, and they're all going to be so different.
Yeah, it's and the idea is you can do exactly as Caprice is doing, or take the idea and run with it. Take as much artistic license as you like. Paint it in your style, paint it in with your unique view and perspective. Love it.
That is exciting. This is brilliant.
Oh, and then we have the prizes again, if you missed that earlier, next week. Randomly selected. If you're not a Mastrius member, we're going to give you a 1-month membership to our recording library, which is a wealth of awesome demos, critiques, panel discussions, interviews. And if you are a member, we're going to give away a Mastrius painting apron.
And again, just throwing a little bit of orange into this foreground. I picked up a bit of the rock color on my brush. Don't stress. You want to have different colors. This is kind of like a earthy, kind of weird foreground. Not quite sure what I want to do with it. So part of it's going to be. And that rock is really a weird shape, so I might change that. So the thing about painting is it's nothing rigid. You can go back in the next day and say, oh, that you need to change that a little. The value's not right, or that rock shape's not right, or whatever. Or part needs to be lighter.
Excuse me. So when you paint the water and the sky in later, how many days will that be before you can do that?
I could just probably do it tomorrow.
Okay. Sweet.
It sets up pretty quick. And I like the split color. I like split color. I like
Mhm.
not over mixing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get rid of that weird shape right there.
Looking great. We have 5 minutes left. If anyone has a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. Lois is wondering if you use any kind of drying medium.
I used to use liquin, Liquin, and mix it in with my paint, but then I just changed through the years and I'm just using pure paint. That's it. And I like how it's got the thickness of paint. Sometimes liquin can like give it a bit of a, if you use too much. Well, I just about dragged those two brushes right through the whole painting. Oops. Yeah, so I've become a bit of a purist where I just kind of want paint. And I've got my students, if you make a mistake too, you're also free to take your handy dandy palette knife and scrape some paint off. I'm going to get rid of that jutting out right there. We all need to know how to scrape off paint on occasion. So I will, yeah, and this weird shaped rock right there, which I don't really like. And look at that, that gave me more split color. I kind of like that look.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Can you remind us of all the colors on your palette again?
Okay, I've got a white, a chrome oxide, permanent green deep, ultramarine, deep violet, raw umber. And I kind of keep my cool colors all together, and then across with the white in the corner. And then across the top, I've got my yellows. I got tad yellow, yellow ochre, an orange red, raw, no, that's burnt sienna, vermilion red, and that's it.
Perfect.
Actually, I have not thrown some yellow ochre in here. Why don't I do that?
Love it. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you don't know, folks, we have a free trial right now where you can get an events membership for a month for free. We do a weekly live event. I mentioned live critiques, demos, panel discussions, like Caprice spoke at one yesterday on imposter syndrome. We do artist interviews, something every week with our community. I'll put the link in the chat where you can get that and you just sign up for it. 1 month free trial, check it out. And with that, actually, you also get added to our online community, so you can start meeting some of our mentors and other artists and whatnot. And that will also give you access to the recordings of those weekly events. You get access for a week for each recording.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really good deal. I'll throw the link in the chat. One more question: how to store paint for next use? That's a good one.
Oh, that is a good one. So I have a wood box that I just set right over top of this, and it will keep my paint for quite a while. And there's also like it's almost like a Tupperware container. You can buy it at art supply stores. I think it's Mastrius, and it's like it will fit your palette right inside, and then there's a lid that you can put on it. So I use a glass palette here in my studio, piece of glass. The edges are like, won't cut anybody. But when I travel on location, I've got the disposable paper palette. And I, both these, I think this is 12 by 16. And this Tupperware type of box fits that size of a palette.
Oh, perfect.
And it will stay for quite a while. Sometimes your paints will get like a bit of a scab on the top and you just have to use your palette knife and lift it, but they will last.
Very cool. And we are at the hour.
Okay.
Looks amazing, Caprice. I'm loving those umbers, or is that the yellow? Ochre, that's the one. Yeah, beautiful. I'm gonna hold it up. Sweet. Look at those brush strokes. Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you, Caprice.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you everyone for coming and for your great questions.
Yeah, and again, we will get back together next week, Friday. You'll get an email with that link shortly before the event. Please join us. It's really wonderful to see everyone's work. And again, hashtag Mastrius Painting Challenge, or send it directly to mastrius.official on Instagram. And we'll give away those prizes. I did put the link in there for the free 1 month events membership, so take advantage of that too. I can see your comments. You're so welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming, and I hope you all come back next week. I can't wait to see what you're painting.
Yeah, thank you, Caprice.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, guys. See you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.